Very much, Mr. Chair. I'm very happy to take my call on this particular bill, and I'm just turning to part 3, the part that we're debating. Of course, the major issue that people in my electorate want to know is why on earth are the government spending so much money on this referendum at this given time? They simply cannot understand it when there is no appetite for change. Why has the government not made the decision to first test the will of the public towards the need for a change or the desire for a change before they then go and have another expensive referendum asking people to choose between the options that they wish to have? Because Mr. Chair, the issue here is why would we have a runoff competition to choose a preferred design if that's ultimately going to be voted down in the end anyway? Why bother going through that particular part of the process if it's going to be voted down anyway? And I think that's the question that everybody that has been raising with me, and I think it's a very legitimate one, and I've yet to hear anyone from the government provide a comprehensive answer to that. No, not at all. We haven't had an answer as to why not ask yes or no before asking people which option they would prefer if the answer was yes. There hasn't been a good answer for the government on that. They're trying to do everything they possibly can to generate as much interest about it. But what's interesting is the more interest they generate in it, the more opposed people are becoming to the idea of changing the flag. And I think that says everything about where the current government's priorities are. They're more interested in talking about the flag than many of the very important issues that face New Zealand at the moment, and I think that they should certainly be doing that.
Tim McIndoe.
Which is a very narrow part of this bill, essentially dealing with regulations and validation of irregularities. The member has had nothing to say on either of those topics yet, and I would invite him either to speak to part 3 or to cease his call.
The point of order is well made. I'm listening closely.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, let me talk while we're on part 3. If we turn to the highlighted clause, part 5, which describes the New Zealand flag, and I think that might be a good place for me to address some of the comments that I have been raising. So the New Zealand flag is described as the national flag of New Zealand for general use on land within New Zealand and where appropriate for international purposes overseas, and is the appropriate national colours to be worn by all New Zealand government ships and by others, such other New Zealand ships, as may for the time being be authorised to wear the New Zealand flag or by or under the Ship Registration Act 1992. So, Mr. Chair, one of the reasons that I'm interested in that is I made the suggestion at the beginning that if New Zealand were to adopt a new flag, why would it not do something similar to what was done with the national anthem? And actually have, for a period of time, two New Zealand flags, so that those who wished to continue to fly the existing flag could do so. That is the arrangement that we have in place for the national anthem. We actually have 2 national anthems in New Zealand. God Save the Queen is still a national anthem. It is not one that I think it's very, very seldom used in New Zealand. But those who wish to use it can still do so. The definitions of the New Zealand flag in here only make provision for there being a single flag. I thank my colleague Tim McIndoe for providing me with the opportunity to read that particular section while he raised his point of order. Because the issue here is why did the government not allow for the possibility that, in fact, while there may be some desire on the part of some New Zealanders to have a change of flag, the vast bulk of people would prefer to stick with the existing flag? And why did they not make provision for that within the legislation? It would have actually been perfectly possible for the government to make provision, as we have to have 2 national anthems, for there to be 2 flags, so that those who are, for whatever reason, very attached to the current flag, and I have to say I'm not one of them, but I know the vast bulk of my constituents are. Why would the government not make provision for the fact that people could continue to use that flag? And it may be that there are some occasions where the use of the current flag would be more appropriate than the use of a new flag. And I note, for example, that much of the feedback about this debate is around why do this when we're commemorating the First World War? And in fact, people would rather have the existing flag, the flag that New Zealand soldiers fought under at the First World War on display at those events. And that would be a legitimate reason why potentially we might have a definition that allowed for there to be more than one official flag of New Zealand, because at those events where it was more appropriate, which are a commemorative nature, it may be more appropriate to have a definition that allows for there to be another official flag, which is the existing flag, even if New Zealand has voted to change.
The Honourable Damien O'Connor.